Before we get into the discussion on CardViews, I realized that in the last lesson I failed to change the text of my buttons. So I just wanted to point that out, and we want our text here to simply be back, which will give us the return. All right, let's talk about CardViews. So CardViews are a container that might contain a linear layout with children of that to present information as a collection to the user. And so in our example here, we have a card for each player of our opening day lineup. And each player might have their picture, and we're just going to use the Raccoon logo as a generic picture for everybody, and then their name in a text view along with the position they're playing that day. We're going to put those card views inside a linear layout, a vertical linear layout, which will be inside a scroll view, so that we can scroll through the list since there's more cards than we can see on screen at any given time. We're going to start by creating another layout. So I'm going to right click on layout, choose new, layout resource. I'm going to call this one lineup. And we're going to make this a linear layout. And so we get in our componentry a vertical linear layout, and we'll add some children to it. The top of the layout is going to be the same as, say, the layout we used for Ronnie, the raccoon layout. So I'm going to go to the Ronnie layout and open that up. And as you may recall, we had our logo up here at the top as an image view. That's basically one row of our linear layout. And then the second row, in essence, had a horizontal linear layout containing a text view and a button that says return. So if we look at our code here, we have the image view, we have the linear layout that contains the text view and the button, and I'm going to copy that and then come back to my lineup, and let's do a split view so I can see the code. And inside that linear layout then, I'm going to add or paste in that image view along with the linear layout. And I'm getting a little error here in that it's not finding the drawable raccoons, and that's because we're missing the namespace for that resource file. So an easy solution here is simply to select the image view and come back and reselect my source. So I'm going to go down to source, compatibility, and let's reselect raccoons. When I do that, it added in the namespace for my resources. One more change I want to make is to select my text and change the source from Ronnie to opening day lineup. Next, I want to have a scroll view underneath all this information. So in the common area, I can choose scroll view. And I'm going to drag it over, but I want it all the way over to the left. I want it to not be part of that linear layout. It should be its own child of the vertical linear layout that encompasses our page. And for the scroll view, I'm going to set some margins. So we'll go to layout margins. And let's do a horizontal margin of that 16 dp that we've been using. And I think I'll just do the same thing on the vertical. Now my scroll view can only have one child, and by default it has a linear layout as a child. It recognizes that most times when we use the scroll view, we're going to have multiple views or widgets in here. So I already have a linear layout, and it's set to match parent and wrap content. Inside that linear layout then, I would like to have my card view. So I'm going to go to containers, select a card view, and drag it into that linear layout so it's indented. It's a child of the linear layout. I'm going to take the scroll view. I want to give it a little bit of color. Let's come down to background. For my hexadecimal value, I'd like to have a kind of a medium gray. So I'm going to choose A0, A0, A0. And then I want some items on the card view. One of those is going to be an image view. So I'll drag the image view over. I'm going to select the Raccoon logo. Now, in reality, when we do our 9 different players, we want to have the picture or the image there be of them each individually. We're going to use the Raccoon logo sort of as a placeholder. I'm going to click OK. So now we can see our card view. Now I'd like to have the card view indented a little bit here, and there's going to be multiple card views. So I'm going to go to my linear layout, and let's add a margin to the linear layout. And once again, I'll choose my 16 dp. That brings it in a little bit. I'm going to hard code the size of my logo to be a little bit smaller. So instead of wrap content for the height, let's make it 65 dp. And then I think I'll do the same for the width, since it is in essence square. But I do want a little bit of a margin. So let's come back down to our layout margins. Horizontal margin of 16 dp probably won't be too bad, but I don't want the vertical margin to be that much. I'll try 5 dp. Just brings it in a little bit. The other thing I want to do for my card view is there is a corner radius. It's actually card corner radius. And I'm going to set that to 10 dp, which will round those corners a little bit more. Actually, I might go more than that. Let's go 15 dp. Right, that looks good. Now I want to have a text view to the right of my image view, but I need to first add a linear layout that's horizontal. So I'm going to drag that in here between the card view and the image view. And then I'll drag my image view into the linear layout. Probably should have created the linear layout first and then added the image view, but I wanted to show that sometimes you forget to do these things, and it's easy to come back and add them in. Okay, so now, as another child of that linear layout, I'd like to have a text view. And that text view, I want it to be centered in the card. So I'm going to set the layout height to be match parent. And then let's set the text alignment to be gravity, and the gravity to be center vertical. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to set the text size to 21 SP, and I'm going to set the text style to be bold. And then finally I'm going to change the text. I don't have strings for these, so I'm just going to hard code these in. My first player is Lou Brock. He plays left field, so I'm going to put LF in parentheses. And that looks pretty good. Now, the one more thing I want to do with my card view, and that is I'm going to give it a little bit of a vertical margin. So we'll come down to Layout, Margin. We'll do the vertical. Let's do 4 dp. So I have a layout margin that's vertical of 4 dp. That's going to give me a little space between my card views. So I'm going to focus a little more on working with the code. So here is our card view, and our image view has a name of image view 7. I'm going to change that because we're going to duplicate this and we'll have a conflict with items named the same thing. So I'm just going to call this IV card 1. And the same thing with the text view. I'm going to change that name to be TV card 1. So now as a duplicate, I can just change that 1 to 2 and 3 and so forth. I'm going to select my card view in the XML that contains the linear layout, which has the image view and the text view. We'll copy. We're going to come in here and paste. Now I get a second card. Notice I get a little error here on IV card 1. Let's change that to a 2. And let's change that TV card 1 to TV card 2. That error goes away. And now I want to change the text here. And this one, the text is going to be Ted Sizemore. And Sizemore plays second base. So I'm going to continue that process of pasting more cards in, changing the IDs for the image view and the text, and changing the text. And here then are the players, the 9 players for our opening day lineup, and you use this as a reference in duplicating and changing your cards. Once you get that done, go ahead and pause the video here, do that, and then we'll join back up. I hope you had no problems doing that. You've got your 9 cards going from Lou Brock, Ted Sizemore, Reggie Smith, Joe Torre, Tim McCarver, Bake McBride, Ted Simmons, Dal Maxwell, and Bob Gibson. At this point, I'm going to go over and save my project. Now, in order to see this, I'm going to need to wire up my activity. So I'm going to go back in the main activity KT file, and we had our function for Go Ronnie. I'm just going to copy that, and we'll change this to Go Lineup. And my layout here, rather than Ronnie layout, will be lineup. So I still need to wire up my button on the menu file. We're going to go to the on-click event in the common attributes and choose Go Lineup. Now my lineup XML has the return button, but since we copied and pasted it, it retained the on-click event of Go Menu. Let's just make sure that this is working as far as our scrolling and the presentation of our card views. So I'm going to test the project in our emulator. Going to click Opening Day Lineup. Takes us to the lineup layout, and I can scroll through the various card views here, up and down. So to finish the project, you need to create the layout for the stadium screen, and that's going to be a constraint layout, so you know how to do that. It's going to be very similar, look very similar to the Ronnie layout. And then you need to come back into the main menu and make sure all the buttons are wired up and just test everything. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Android App Development Cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.